votes that were accepted as correct votes. It therefore means that the elections are truly inconclusive. We can see from the logistical problems that Ngige is saying that in his place there were no elections or stuff like that. Then you say this, you are going to have supplementary votes, you have it on Sunday at a time when people did not even know. So if you ask me, I'd say they should just cancel the election. And 20% turnout is so low.
What do you think can explain, voter apathy, the seeming apathy?
If you follow these campaigns in Anambra State, to me, what's there were no issues. It was just they kept on attacking each other. And you can imagine maybe even on the ground in the state, maybe they would have been very heated up in the state, and people would just say, whoever comes, let them come, and not bother themselves or find that. People might even think that on that day there will be a lot of violence, But luckily, because there was so much security presence, there was none. But somebody will just look at it. These people, with the kind of campaigns they've had, what do you think will happen on that day? So I believe that can be the only explanation for the low voter turnout.
Well, anyway, I think some will also disagree that there was nothing as voter apathy, because the turnout was immense in so many places, but for the voter register that didn't actually show names, it wasn't correct. I'm just trying to find a proper word for it, that didn't actually reflect the registration of the voters in such places. But according to Mr. Wankwo, said even on a Sunday, a whole lot of people still came out, the information went around, but some INEC staff were not seen in such polling units.
Positions, You see, that's the thing I'm saying. All of these elections, Edo State, Ondo State, now Anambra State, all of these elections are supposed to be like test cases for INEC to put itself together for the national elections. And when INEC keeps failing one after the other, INEC keeps failing, one should look at INEC itself. Because a lot is at stake. A lot is at stake. Okay? So, for me, there's no reason why you would have a station where people report to the polling station by 2 p.m. In some cases, 4 p.m. That already is electoral irregularity.
Even in Oka, where
the state capital
office is, the election materials didn't get to so many polling units early enough.
Now, you see, there are things I want to believe could have caused this. Perchance, a party that feels it's in the advantage has influence over INEC, because INEC has publicly said that one of its staff, for INEC to own up that one of its staff was compromised. You can imagine that, imagine materials, Anambra is a very small state. So I believe there was a lot of compromise, there was a lot of engineering of the elections as a way of making it possible for one candidate to be the one that is ensured to win the election. These are the things that should be probed. How did INEC staffs perform? What were their instructions at the beginning? When were they supposed to report? And then when they did not report, there's a place, say a place that is clear, you came by 2 p.m. You are supposed to be there by 7:30. You got there by 2 p.m. Where were you between 7:30 and 2 p.m.? Materials, I'm sure if you check logistical records from INEC headquarters, they couldn't say they didn't have enough printed materials for Anambra State. Where were the materials? I'm sure there were proper arrangement made for vehicles to deliver these materials, proper security arrangement made.
I wish that we could play back INEC's, the INEC chairman, beg your pardon, the INEC commissioner in the state. I wish we could play back what he said before the elections.
Yes.
So that we get a feel. It seemed like everything was on course. I mean, it was so detailed that they had serviced their generators. And it was saying that even that electricity wasn't going to be a problem for them, even if they had to be counting into the dead of the night. But it was saying that all of that was...
everything failed. So there needs to be a probe of this election.
When do you think that probe should be carried out? Because we believe that right now, what is at stake, we've seen protests, what is at stake is that people want to be able to vote. They want to be able to exercise their franchise. Yes.
You see, one of the things I see that's necessary, if you remember in Edo State, several people could not vote. Several people could not vote. The same thing now we have in Anambra State. So many people come to the polling booth. The polling booth where you have 500 names, maybe you see 17 or 18 people's names. That's fundamentally wrong. So what can we do? How do we go about this? You're asking where can this probe come from? I would prefer that maybe first, there's the issue of the elections. I'm not saying that we need, because this is going to create a constitutional problem. Because the governor's term will soon end. When is this new election going to hold? Because a new governor must be declared. So if there's going to be a new election, INEC has to set out the time very clearly, very quickly. Can they print all the materials they need, considering that they use so much materials within that time? That's one. But whatever INEC does with this election, there needs to be a proper probe as to who caused these failures. And those people need to be punished and taken out of the system.
I think we'll look at punishment issue, because it looks like we haven't actually done well in that regard, making people to continue to do the same harm to the country.
Yes.
But talking about that preparation, which Mark talked about a little earlier on, because we were in Calabar and we discussed the preparations of INEC. Let's go back to that report and see the kind of assurance we got from the REC in Anambra State.
Did not hold. We have difference between the two highest scorers, which are difference between ABGA 174,710 and PDP 94,856. The difference came to 79,754. 79,754, which is less than the votes that were cancelled. That is, the registered voters where election was cancelled. Because of this, we cannot return the winner in this election. The commission will then arrange for not a rerun, but a supplementary election in only those areas that election was cancelled. We have all the areas where
what we hear about the situation in Obosi, Idemili, and Nkwo.
Yes, well, it has been a sort of a mistake that occurs within the circle of supervisor and
Sorry about that mess-up. Actually, we're trying to go back to that report leading up to this particular election, the preparations by INEC, also showing us the servicing of their generating set and a whole lot. They said on that day that they have been able to put everything into proper perspective. And now, if this is what we're getting, and your fear is that subsequent elections, 2015, and even in Ekiti State, next year will be another governorship election in Ekiti State.
Yeah.
How can we stop the recurrence of all of these anomalies coming in from the electoral umpire?
Sincerely, I feel that someone in INEC should bear responsibility for this. Things don't keep going wrong. In the private sector, you don't do things like this. No organization would plan a program like this, lay out so much resources, and get this on the day of that program. People must just pay for this. They take the country for a ride.
That's another angle, resources spent or wasted.
So much money wasted in Anambra State, so much money wasted on voter registers, so much money wasted on all kinds of things. India has a population of more than 800 million people. And India conducts elections, and you get the results of the elections 2-3 days after the elections. And in a lot of places, you find that these elections are even by electronic voting. We need to get to a point, especially for 2015, where when somebody loses, he knows he lost. He knows he lost.
Do you think that, that might help, the introduction of electronic voting? Because we're seeing that INEC, they've been announcing a lot about pushing the frontiers. Last time it was, they said that they would only use the electronic register.
Yes, in 2011.
Things that were printed out from what the data capturing machines had. But now they're saying that they will introduce the DDC machines themselves at the polling units for accreditation at the very least. You will not vote electronically, but you will have to be accredited. Do you think that might help? Or do you think it would just be complicating it?
It should help if the machines would work. But if you have a station where you have a machine that's the only process by which you can